If you've been watching the news at all, you just can't miss it. The headlines are absolutely everywhere, and the message is chilling. It feels like the Middle East is on a knife's edge, with the US and Iran locked in a standoff that could explode at any second. The drums of war, they're beating louder than they have in years.
And this isn't just talk, not anymore. I mean, look at this. This headline from Axios, citing sources inside the White House, puts the probability of a major military strike at a staggering 90%. 90. That's not a maybe. That is practically a certainty, and it has sent absolute shockwaves through global markets.
And you can see the ripple effects hitting already. We saw a massive 4% jump in oil prices, the biggest single-day spike since last October. When the world thinks a war is about to break out in the Middle East, this is the first thing that happens. It's the most tangible consequence, the one everyone feels. But here's the question we really need to be asking. Is all this frantic coverage, the countdown clocks, the threats back and forth, is that the real story? Or is all of this loud, distracting noise actually designed to cover up the much quieter, much more important signal of what's really driving this conflict? Let's unpack that. Okay, so to really understand this countdown to war, we have to do one critical thing. We have to separate the signal from the noise. The noise is what grabs the headlines, but the signal is what's actually driving the strategy. And this really breaks it down for us. On one side, you've got the noise, all this conflicting messaging, right? You hear an attack is imminent, and then in the very next breath, oh, diplomacy is our first option. But the real signal, the thing we really need to pay attention to, points to three crucial drivers: the president's falling domestic poll numbers, America's brand new status as a net energy exporter, and a massive infrastructure project called the Texas Gulf Link. These are the real game changers here. So let's start with the politics at home. The president's approval ratings. They're not looking good. Fueled by some recent scandals and security lapses, they've really taken a nosedive. And with the midterm elections just around the corner, well, the pressure is immense to create a decisive victory, some kind of powerful event to completely shift the narrative and rally support. So here's the crucial point. We are not talking about another limited surgical strike. No. The ambition this time, according to sources, is way, way bigger. The real objective seems to be one of two things: either full-on regime change or the complete and total annihilation of Iran's nuclear and missile programs, something to secure a lasting political legacy. Now for the second signal. And honestly, this might be the most important strategic shift we've seen in decades. The United States is no longer beholden to Middle Eastern oil. In the past, any instability in the region meant economic pain for America. But today, as a net energy exporter, the entire strategic calculus has been completely flipped on its head. And the Texas Gulf Link project is the physical proof of this new power. This deep water port allows the U.S. to ship massive quantities of oil directly from the Gulf of Mexico, completely bypassing the world's most dangerous choke point, the Strait of Hormuz. It means that while the Middle East might be in chaos, the U.S. can actually profit, selling its own energy to desperate allies and cementing its role as the world's new energy superpower. But Iran is far from helpless. While it can't come close to matching U.S. military might, it holds a terrifying economic trump card. Its strategy isn't to win a war, it's to make sure that everybody loses. And to really get their strategy, you have to understand just how desperate their situation is. Internally, Iran is an absolute tinderbox. The economy is crippled by hyperinflation, youth unemployment is over 30%, and there's this deep, deep public anger against the ruling Revolutionary Guard. The regime is fighting for its very survival. And its key weapon is this tiny strip of water right here, the Strait of Hormuz. It is the artery through which a huge portion of the world's energy flows. If you control the strait, you control the global economy. But, you look at the map and you might be wondering, it's 54 kilometers wide. That sounds like plenty of room, right? So where's the actual choke point? Well, here's the first part of the trap. The only part of the strait that's deep enough for those massive supertankers to navigate safely is just 9 kilometers wide. And here is the absolute kicker. That critical 9-kilometer channel lies entirely within Iran's territorial waters. This gives Tehran the legal authority to stop and inspect any ship they want. It effectively allows them to shut down the entire strait without firing a single illegal shot. This geographic advantage is the foundation for their entire strategy, which analysts are calling economic mutually assured destruction. It's a modern twist on the old Cold War doctrine. The message is simple. If you come for our regime, we will bring the global economy down with us.
So how would they do it? It's a three-step playbook. First, they deploy thousands of these really hard-to-detect smart mines throughout all the shipping lanes. Second, they'd activate their network of 180,000 proxies across the region for asymmetric attacks. And third, they would launch what they call ubiquitous warfare, a campaign of pure chaos targeting global logistics and supply chains everywhere. So, with the battle lines drawn so clearly, what happens next? Well, analysts have wargamed this whole thing out, and it really boils down to three primary scenarios, each with a distinct probability.
This slide gives us the clearest possible overview. The most likely scenario, at 65%, is what's being called a surgical castration, a quick, overwhelming U.S. strike that neuters Iran's military and hopefully encourages an internal collapse. Then you have the nightmare scenario, at 25%, the Hormuz blackout, which would lead to total global economic chaos. And finally, there's a slim 10% chance of a last-minute strategic compromise. And to really understand the stakes of that Hormuz blackout scenario, just look at this number. Key U.S. allies like South Korea and Japan depend on the Middle East for over 72% of their oil. If that flow stops, their economies don't just slow down, they grind to a halt.
And this is where it gets truly terrifying. South Korea, which is an absolute linchpin of the global tech supply chain, has only 9 days of natural gas reserves. 9. A blockade lasting just 10 days could trigger a catastrophic shock, potentially shutting down semiconductor plants and sending ripples across the entire world economy. So we're in the final countdown. What are the specific triggers we should all be watching for that could push this whole thing from a Cold War into a very, very hot one?
This timeline lays it out starkly. First, the military assets, the advanced jets, the munitions, they're already in place. Second, the USS Gerald Ford Carrier Group, a key piece of the strike force, needs another 4 to 5 days to get into its optimal position. And then there's the political trigger. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu faces a March 31st deadline. Initiating a war before then allows him to remain in power as a wartime leader, creating an incredibly powerful incentive to act soon.
So the signal could not be clearer. This isn't just about one regional conflict. We are witnessing the violent birth of a new global energy order, one centered on American power. The ultimate question, then, isn't simply if there will be a war, but rather, in the aftermath, who will get to write the rules for the next generation.